Welcome to Lawyers in the House with Motley. Wish you had a lawyer in the family? Now you do. Here's your host, Veronica Waters.
Hey everybody, welcome to Lawyers in the House with Motley. I'm your host, Veronica Waters, and we are here talking about something that really affects probably everybody in your household. Men, women, even children. We love to go to the salon or to the spa. We want to look good and we want to feel good. But sometimes things can turn ugly at the beauty salon. And we're talking to two amazing lawyers from Motley Injury Attorneys today, Jennifer Fleming and Alyssa White. And I know you probably remember how fabulous they have been on previous shows. So we loved them so much, we had them come back into the studio to talk about this. And they look like they just left the day spa. Not to make this all about your looks, but why are you looking so especially glamorous today, ladies, Jennifer and Alyssa? Thanks so much for being in the house with me.
Thank you for having us.
So curious to ask you about how coincidental it is that both of you got hired at Motley in 2013, right?
Exact same day, actually.
The same day.
Yes.
Oh, what?
Yep. And we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, we started on the same day. I was coming from out of state. Alyssa had not been in Georgia too long. And we didn't know a lot of people, so we decided to go around the firm and introduce ourselves to every single person. Walked right into their offices and said, "Hi, we're Jen and Alyssa, and we're starting here today."
Oh, my God. And how did everybody look at you?
They were like, we have work to do, probably. Well, we were so excited, though, and it was such a good environment to step into. That, I mean, I think we were just really excited. But, it's good. We've been friends ever since.
So after you guys made the rounds and introduced yourselves to everybody, then you just, went back and sat in your offices, or?
Well, we had this wonderful idea that we thought was a good idea, that we would get everyone in the hallway where our offices were located to go to lunch together so we could, meet people and, talk about what we were about to, start, with the firm. And, so we convinced the whole hallway of colleagues to go to lunch.
Yeah.
So clearly, you guys must be very persuasive in front of a jury. Because if you got a whole hallway of attorneys to take off for lunch at the same time, kudos to you. All right. Alyssa White and Jennifer Fleming here to talk about beauty salons and the things that can happen in them. Sometimes they can be pretty scary. And it's not something that I necessarily really thought about before. But when you think about being in a place where there are heat instruments, flat irons, curling irons, needles, electricity, all kinds of chemicals, lasers, you're getting a hair transplant, you're getting a hair color. There could be anything that could affect us. And oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I never thought going into the beauty salon could be so scary.
And it's something we should be thinking about. We all think like you. You think, oh, great, I'm going to get a touch up on my color or get a manicure, and I'm going to come out feeling refreshed and beautiful. But there are a lot of hazards and a lot of things we need to be cautious about.
Yep.
Tell me about some of these things that we need to think about, because it is so all new to me.
Yeah. So, I had a nail salon case, and who doesn't love to get a manicure or pedicure? I love them. My hands are manicured as well. I think all three of us.
I know, I'm hiding mine.
And a woman got a manicure, and a few days later, she discovered she had an infection, and she thought there were dirty tools used to do the manicure, and she called the nail salon, and they told her to soak her nail in acetone, which, they're not doctors. They are nail techs and cosmetologists, but they told her to soak it in acetone, and it actually made the infection worse, as you might imagine, and probably quite painful. She went to get it treated. The infection got so bad that she eventually needed a PICC line placed into her for antibiotics into her chest. Yes, it was very bad. So she was able to get a recovery, fortunately, and after a few months she was healed. But that's a very traumatic and painful thing to happen when you're just going to get a manicure. So you need to be conscious. Are you going to a salon that uses dirty tools? Are they using clean tools when they're doing a manicure on you? And you also need to be aware that you need to report it if something happens.
Oh,
so
I didn't think about that.
If they cut you while you're there and you notice you're bleeding and maybe it's turning red or it hurts to touch it, we would recommend reporting it right away. There needs to be a record. An issue with these cases is sometimes liability, meaning proving the causality of your damages and who caused your damages. So who caused your injury can be an
Wait a
issue.
minute. Okay, so to whom are you saying report it? Because if somebody nicks my finger, I'm going to say, well, ow, whatever. But is that what you're talking about?
Well, if you go home and you start to notice like the yellowing and the redness around a cuticle, but you don't do anything about it, you soak it in Epsom salt or you put antibiotic ointment on it and you don't do anything.
Or
And then you
Right.
call us and we're like, okay, it's not that we don't believe you, but we got to have something more. So an urgent care visit or a primary care doctor call where they prescribe an antibiotic or they take a look at it. There has to be something more than you just saying they clipped my cuticle too short and it got infected.
Yeah, I would think that finding out how it happened and who was behind it. I mean, it's easy if it's a hair thing.
Right.
Because you know who did your hair. And you could everybody probably saw that. I don't know. That's probably a terrible example.
No, but you also, too, report it to the salon so
Yeah.
that they have a record of it. And they may not write it down, but I would ask them to maybe do an incident report if possible, or you could record the conversation at least and let them know you're recording the conversation to
Save your
report.
receipt.
Yeah, something that proves that you were at the salon that day. And so that when you go to the urgent care or the doctor or the hospital, if it's that bad, you can say, look, I was at your salon this day and now my finger's infected 2 days later. It was obviously caused by the services I received.
Question, how common are these calls? Do you guys get them a lot?
Yeah, and to be honest, I like these cases. They're just so, practical, I guess. And, I had a lady who had went for a facial peel and she had chemical burns from the peel on her cheeks. And she was a young woman, and she had peels done before, so it wasn't anything new.
Okay.
And she gets home, and it's like a little more crusty than what it should be when you have a peel. And she's like, oh, my goodness, like something's not right. So she ended up having second-degree burns on her cheeks, and it healed, but then the residual effects were just redness and burning, even like months and months and months later. And the poor lady, I mean, you could just, she would send me pictures of like updates, like she would say, okay, this is month 1, here's what I look like 2 months out. She had all these creams that she had been prescribed to put on them. But, I mean, it really impacted her life. She was a yoga or cycling instructor. And so the sweat, when it came down on her cheeks, was burning and awful. And, it just, a young woman's facial appearance being impacted is a major thing to present, whenever you're making a claim. Yeah.
I mean, it's your face.
Yeah. And so she couldn't wear makeup and she couldn't teach her classes. And it was just this whole string of events. But I mean, we'll talk about this, I think, a little bit later, just as far as like, how do we value these cases and what do we look for? But she didn't have a lot of medical bills, but it was all the other things we put together in our demand to the salon and the esthetician that had done the peel, their insurance company, to show how severe the consequences were of the negligent actions.
So she gets like, I don't know, a couple $100s in medical bills. How do you,
Yeah, she only had, like $500-ish of medical expenses, an urgent care visit, a dermatology visit. She had got like a scar laser evaluation to see, maybe she could have some laser treatments done to help with the redness, but she had chosen not to do that. So yeah, relatively low monetary damage, but a lot higher, appearance-wise as far as damages go.
Physical.
So how did that case turn out? What were you able to do for her?
It was a very good outcome for her. I can't say the exact amount, but tens and tens of thousands of dollars.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing.
But I mean, too, you have to think about what is your face worth to you? What is the
appearance
of your face?
How do you put a dollar amount on the most forward-facing thing that people see? Yeah.
Right.
And that can differ from client to client, too. I mean, a woman in her 20s may value her facial appearance more than a man in his 80s, or vice versa. They may not. But just also the type of job you have. If you're an anchor on television, your
appearance is
exactly. Your appearance matters for your job, too, sometimes. So it just depends on who you are as well.
Is it easy, though, to how do you prove what's at fault or who's at fault? Is it the fault of the thing that was used, the person who used it on you?
Well, and that can kind of go into a very long process. But so initially, we always want to start with like the person closest to the injury. So in my case with the peel, it was the esthetician who left the chemical on her face too long.
Okay.
Right?
So then do you sue her? Do you sue the sue the esthetician?
She's
the
acting in the
spa,
capacity.
salon?
Yeah. So the spa where the esthetician was employed carried insurance to compensate people who would be injured based on things that happened in the salon. So it was the esthetician's employer's insurance that ended up paying the settlement. But you can go down the path of like, and this could have been a defense they could have raised at trial, would be, well, it wasn't the esthetician that did something wrong. It was an incorrectly mixed formula from the manufacturer of the product that was used. So it can keep going. And a lot of times when you get into litigation, those are the things that they start to bring in because it
So
muddies
much
the
finger
waters.
pointing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it occurs to me how many different types of salons and spas and offices might have these kinds of things actually happening. Massage therapy, nail salons, waxing, hair salons, fat freezing, Botox, that kind of stuff, all the fillers and injections. I mean, anything that's coming in contact with your hair, your skin, it can be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything. It's things that you forget about that you're doing again every day. You just go in to get a quick procedure.
It's just part of your routine.
Yeah, it's a little zhuzh, and then you're not realizing that there could be something that could go terribly wrong. I mean, we have people that are diabetic that have issues with getting pedicures a lot of the time. But you also have to know your health history too. If you're going somewhere, you want to make sure you're very cautious about things because that could turn terribly wrong.
What's the
quickly.
diabetes angle have to do with
I think
it?
a lot of diabetics have issues where they potentially could lead to foot amputations and limb amputations. And so any little cut or infection could lead to a bigger infection. I'm not a doctor. That's just my
I do
understanding
remember
of it.
hearing about a case that involved a diabetic and some like overly hot water or something that caused her some issues.
Well, it's
a circulation thing maybe.
Yeah, I think it's circulation and like the difficulty to process for your body to process and heal from an infection. And so it just kind of gets worse and worse and worse. But there's some assumption of the risk issues there too.
Right.
You know, if you know that you have these major health complications, you know, you probably shouldn't have the nail salon digging out your ingrown toenail, right? You should be going to a podiatrist. So, so there's things that, you know, come into play there. But I mean, we get a lot of calls about these cases and, you know, I do enjoy these types of ones.
I'm actually sort of curious about how often people are too embarrassed to call after something like this happens. And I'm going to ask Alyssa White and Jennifer Fleming about that coming up on Lawyers in the House with Motley. Sometimes an allergic reaction can also equal a personal injury when you can sue over an allergy. Coming up next on Lawyers in the House. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House with Motley. I'm your host, Veronica Waters, here with Jennifer Fleming and Alyssa White, attorneys from Motley, talking about what happens when you go to the spa or the salon or the tattoo parlor and something terrible happens. You just want a little zhuzh, like Jen said, and then it turns into a horror show. But sometimes it's a physiological thing, right? It's an allergic reaction. When can you sue over an allergy?
So if you know you have an allergy to something, you need to tell the salon or the tech or someone that you have an allergy to whatever that product is, so they know not to use that product on you. They have to have notice that you are allergic to a product that could potentially be used on you. As long as they have notice of it, if they still use it, then that is definitely something you need to call 1-800-LAW-NEED about, because that is something they absolutely should not be doing. But if you're in a situation where you don't know you're allergic to something, you may not have a case because they may not also know that you're allergic to that. So how would they know you're allergic if you don't know? But that being said, you might also have a case. So we always say to call in those circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was going to say, too, don't gloss over that medical history that you fill out before you get a massage or a facial or any kind of beauty treatment.
Yeah.
You have to put like what medications you're currently taking, even like supplements and vitamins, because all of that can impact what they're doing to you. So don't gloss over that. I know, like, you know, you yes, or no conditions whatsoever, but you might have forgotten, I actually take a vitamin D supplement or something like that would cause an interaction with something that you're receiving. So don't gloss over that, because that is your opportunity to give the esthetician or the doctor or whoever's doing a procedure on you notice of medical conditions so that what they do doesn't exacerbate it or make it worse.
Because if they're trained, they'll know what the possible interactions
yeah,
are.
and you might not. You might think, oh, it's just a vitamin D supplement or a prenatal vitamin or birth control. Like those are all like the common things, but it may impact the reaction that you would have from these different procedures.
I was actually getting a wax yesterday, and my esthetician told me that someone didn't tell her that they were on a medication that caused a reaction with the wax. And so she didn't know, and something bad happened, and she felt terrible about it.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I didn't know what to do. You know, you fill out those forms. She didn't put it on there. And so perfect example.
Do you have to fill out the form every time you go? I guess you must.
I would update it if you're on something, or if you get a new prescription or new medication.
Like antibiotics, Retin-A, they...
Maybe ask your doctor, too, when you get prescribed it. Are there any interactions that I should be telling anyone about this?
Yeah, it's interesting that, though, I think the scary thing is if you don't know what you might be allergic to, then it becomes even more of a gamble, or it feels like a gamble.
Right.
Again, at a place that I feel like I'm just going to get a little pampering. I really like the zhuzh thing. I think I'm going to, I'm just going to get a little zhuzh, and all of a sudden, you know, my mom had an allergic reaction in the hair salon. It's terrible.
gosh.
You know, it was like she was miserable.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
miserable.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that we know exactly what the ingredient is. When is anaphylaxis somebody else's fault? Thank you so much for that. Jennifer Fleming, Alyssa White. We're talking about what happens at the beauty parlor, the tattoo parlor, wherever you might be going for just a little zhuzh when things turn into a horror show. Coming up, sexual assault at the spa, and why those filler parties may not be such a good idea after all. That's straight ahead on Lawyers in the House. I'm Veronica Waters. Stay with us. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House with Montlick. I'm your host, Veronica Waters, here with Montlick injury attorneys Alyssa White and Jennifer Fleming. Thanks so much for being with us here in the house. We want to make sure that you become a part of Lawyers in the House all of the time. So subscribe to us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Like, subscribe, and you'll get a notification every time each episode drops every week, and you get those weekly updates, and then you can be first on the block to get this brand new information, you know? And who doesn't want to be first? All right. Sometimes we have heard this phrase. Some maybe wise or possibly masochistic person said, beauty is pain. And I don't think that it's supposed to be that way, right? We're talking about what happens when you are getting some sort of cosmetic treatment, or maybe sometimes even semi-medical treatment, and things go horribly wrong. Not something I had really thought about a lot before, Alyssa and Jen, but tell me how bad these things can really be.
I mean, they can be pretty bad. I had a case where a woman was getting a bikini wax, and the waxer was not licensed. My client did not realize that at the time, obviously. And they ripped a part of her anatomy, and it was very, very painful and traumatizing for her, with a lot of repercussions, very serious injury. And later her husband went in, and there was no license displayed, which they are supposed to display their licenses. And we ended up settling her case, but that's something that you also need to be aware of. Again, when you go into a nail salon or a waxing salon, do they have their licenses displayed, and is that person a licensed person? And so it can be very, very traumatizing. I mean, I can't even imagine that happening and the repercussions you have later on. She was only in her young 20s at the time.
That pain had to be excruciating, the most intimate part of your body.
Yes.
And and she's married, so she's in a loving relationship.
Well, it actually broke up her marriage, believe it or not. There were some issues there, but he also, when they were together and when this happened, he videoed her in the emergency room when she was being stitched, and you could see and hear her screaming at how painful it was. So, I mean, that was great evidence to have to use against the salon, because if a jury were to see that, I think they would completely understand what that woman was going through. And it was completely awful. And these are things that can happen, and it can be embarrassing to call us when something like this happens. But you shouldn't be embarrassed to call us. Things like this happen more than you know, and there may be certain people that might be embarrassed to give us a call about things, and it might be about a part of your body that you don't feel comfortable speaking to a man or a woman about, and you can certainly call us at 1-800-LAW-NEED, and you can ask for a man or a woman if you if you feel more comfortable, because it is a sensitive subject, and we totally understand that. So please don't be embarrassed to call. There are some really traumatizing and terrible things that happened, and embarrassment should not stop you from potentially taking action against someone that does something wrong.
Talk about traumatizing. One of the things that has made headlines in recent years is a series of sexual assaults at massage parlors, or I should say like spa clubs.
Right.
I have a case right now, and we've seen the national chain that has had a lot of allegations against them, against these sexual assaults happening. It's a massage chain, and I think it's mostly women that have been targeted. And from what I've read, they will report it to the salon, and they may or may not do something. And so I would say to you, call 911.
Right.
Call the police. The client that I currently have, something happened that it was her first massage. And so when it's your first massage and you don't know what's happening, you might feel very confused and gaslit. I think we talked about.
Is it supposed to feel like
right.
that?
Is it
part
me?
of it?
Yeah. Is this me? And so she went out and reported it to the spa, and they kind of were like, well, we don't know. And so she called 911 right there on the scene. And I highly recommend you do that, because you want it recorded and you want that person criminally charged as well if that's happening. And so luckily for my client, she called 911 and that person was arrested. They found him later that day. And so you want to make sure that that is done. Absolutely. Protect yourself first and foremost. Call 911. If something doesn't feel right, report it. And if it was supposed to happen, oh, well, you made a call. And that's
no
okay.
harm, no foul.
Right, exactly.
Right. But if something was done, it's documented, and you have, and also I'm thinking you're probably like in some kind of shock, and
yes.
can you even verbalize what happened to you at that moment?
She came out and told her daughter, and her daughter, I think, is the one that convinced her to call 911 and said, no, that is not what was supposed to happen.
That's not, Mom, that's not how the massage is supposed to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are so obvious, though.
Right.
Right. I love that we're getting to delve into people's actual stories here. Mm-hmm. Alyssa, some things are more obvious.
Yeah.
Let's talk about maybe going to the hair salon.
Yeah.
Right. I go regularly.
It shows.
Well, thank you. So I'm constantly at the salon doing this, that, or the other. You know, I don't have any gray hair. That's not why I'm going. Okay. But I know when I got a bad haircut, can I consider that a personal injury?
Well, and you have to think. So if you go and let's say you want your hair to be a little darker or a little lighter or whatever, and it's not the exact result that you're going for, probably not a case. But one of the very first cases that I ever resolved at Montlick was a lady who went to have highlights. She was middle-aged, and she had had highlights all her life. So she knew what to expect. It wasn't her first time. She had been doing it for a really long time. And she had very long hair, almost like all the way down her back, very, very long hair. And I saw pictures of her on a horse with her hair like all down, like her back
like
flowing
streaming
beautifully.
Yeah,
like that, like what you would like picture. So that was her. And so she went to have highlights, and she was sitting there, and the bleach and the chemicals were processing, and she kept thinking like, well, how much longer am I going to sit here? Like, why isn't the lady coming to like check it? And, they check the foil and then they wash it out, And she was like, it just kept getting longer and longer. And she said at one point, the lady like took food to the back break room and was like eating. And she had even got up and said like, hey, like, I feel like I've been sitting here for a while, what's going on? And the lady was like, oh, you're fine. Like, it's lifting. It's fine. So turns out her hair was so over-processed that inches and inches and inches and inches of her hair were just falling out in the bowl when she was rinsing it out.
Oh
so her hair went from being way, way, way long, beautiful blonde hair to like shoulder length in one salon visit where she just went for highlights. So, that wasn't the result that she went to, for. And it was so far outside of the result. It wasn't like, oh, you missed a spot, or, oh, I wish it was just a little bit lighter, or, I don't like it, but like there's nothing wrong with it. Like, so in this case, clearly something was wrong. She had let it process way too long and had fried her hair. So we got her a small settlement. I mean, hair grows back. It's not a permanent injury, but it is like a feeling, your persona. it had an impact on her. And it was actually her husband that had called for the consultation. He was like, my wife is so upset and I don't know what to do about it.
Aw.
And, so anyways, I will
Sweet.
never forget that case. We did resolve it with the salon directly. But, they had tried to come up with all kinds of excuses as to why it wasn't their fault. And it was like, well, like what?
She's
like,
gotten
what-
highlights
what-
like
yeah,
most
yeah,
of
like
her
what
life.
was she supposed to do?
Yeah.
So-
They were trying to gaslight her.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So again, it never hurts to call us. If we can't help you, we'll tell you why. I think we take pride in that. Like, we're not going to set you up to be like, well, I don't understand what she's saying, or why won't they take my case? Like, I'll say, like, this is probably not a case that we can pursue for you, and here's why, and I'll give you the reasons. But in this case, I felt for her. There was a little bit of emotion with it, and we had a good resolution for her.
And I feel like we're talking a lot about women calling.
I was
Yes.
just thinking the same
So-
thing, but
But-
but literally you are in my head right now.
It affects men too.
Yeah.
We've also had cases for men. They also get pedicures, haircuts. They get shaved. We had a case for a man that went to a tattoo removal, and he had gotten his tattoo removed and had sustained third-degree burns. And yes, you're burning.
Third-degree burns.
Yeah, and you're burning off a tattoo. I understand, but you're not supposed to have third-degree burns and
Yeah, it
permanent
wouldn't be a
scarring like that.
procedure that you pay for at that.
Exactly,
you know?
exactly. So it's not just women that
Yeah.
that are affected by this issue. So for the men out there, we know this affects
Yes.
you too. We see you. So also please call us if you've had something like this happen.
Yeah,
to
there've
you.
been. I think there might be. I'm not sure if it's still ongoing, but in Illinois there is this complaint about this hair transplant procedure. A lot of men have been injured with they've gotten like scars and burning, and it's just, you're right. It's not just men. And think about, you're also taking your kids to the salon
Right.
occasionally, and let's talk. You talk about the nicks. I mean, you think the scissors for a trim is just nothing, but what if you do get an infection
Yeah.
or
Right.
I remember when COVID was like really something that everybody was talking about every day, and it was like, if you have a cut, you need to cover it up with a Band-Aid because you don't want it to get into the cut. It's
Right.
amazing how a little thing can just bloom into something so dangerous.
Right.
Definitely.
I was talking about earlier before we went to break why it's important where you go to get these procedures done, because a lot of people who you might not typically think of as providing these services are doing it. Like, I'd probably be okay with my dentist giving me Botox because they know facial anatomy. They're good at that kind of thing. But I don't know if I want my waxer per se doing it, for example. I
Right.
don't know.
Right.
Well, and I think, they have like Botox parties and things like that.
Yes,
but
I had a girlfriend who went to one of those.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure it's great and fun, but there's risks associated with it. I know somebody who went for Botox and passed out while she was receiving the treatment. And if you think about it, what if that happened not at a medical spa where there's medical staff available to help you? What if you had a reaction? What if what if they made a mistake and hit something they weren't supposed to hit? So where you go and the staff that is there, as opposed to like a nurse practitioner performing Botox, but and to make sure that they have the means at the spa or the medical spa or wherever you're going to handle situations like
Any
that.
kind of medical
Yeah.
emergency or something.
Yeah.
Right. And then too, when you're going to a medical professional to have any medical cosmetic procedure, that then you're going into the medical malpractice realm as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, you definitely want to have a medical professional who, if someone's injecting your face, again, we talked about your face. It's only the most important thing.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that these people are the proper medical professionals, and you're at a medical facility. Again, I go to the dentist and I have a tooth removed, and if they put you under, they have the staff there to deal with an emergency most of the time. So you would want the same if it's for Botox
Any
or
kind
something
of-
else like that
yeah.
going into your face.
Yeah, again, all these layers that you're not thinking about. And what about the health department? What role do they play?
So you can
obviously I'm not going to have somebody putting needles in my face if the place is filthy. But
Right.
Or so you think. You don't know what goes
Yeah.
on in the back either,
Ew.
too, but we don't want to think about that.
Well, and we always say to report it, so let's say something does happen, right? You can call the police, you can report it to the salon, you can call the health department, call us. There's several avenues of documentation and places that can investigate for you as well. And the health department is one of those.
But they can't give you a remedy, unfortunately. So if you're looking to have some sort of compensation, then you need to
Then that's
call
where-
Montlick to get your free consultation and see if we can help you with that. But the health department can't provide you with a remedy.
Right. And you guys can, this is the kind of case you can take no matter where it is in the country, right? It doesn't have to be local. Anybody can call you.
Yeah, we're a national law firm, so we, will consult and help people from anywhere.
All right. Thank you so much to Jennifer Fleming and Alyssa White. Coming up, what advice these two lawyers would give to those of us who still want to seek out a beauty treatment. That's coming up next on Lawyers in the House and the Motley Closing Argument. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House with Montlick. I'm Veronica Waters here with Montlick injury attorneys Jennifer Fleming and Alyssa White. It has been a beauty of a show so far, and now what you've been waiting for all hour long, the Montlick closing argument. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Well, I think to wrap up, we want to make sure that you are going to a reputable, clean salon. Make sure that if they are doing your nails or your hair, whatever it is, they are using clean tools. Maybe ask how they're cleaned if you're not sure, if they're not opening a new pack when you get there. Let them know if you're allergic to anything that you know of, any medications. Make sure you fill out those forms. Check the licenses if possible. See if they're displayed like they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and advocate for yourself. If you're in a massage and something doesn't feel right, say something. If you're having your hair colored or straightened and something doesn't feel right, you should say something. Because honestly, if something doesn't feel right, there's probably something wrong. And whether or not it's a legal case, I don't know, but you can always call us for a consultation. But also just consider the risks of the procedures that you're going in for. And, make sure the licensed, proper people are the ones performing these procedures on you. We have a lot of those, fat burning cases and weight loss, procedures and things like that. You just got to be really careful. Always make sure that it's a licensed professional, as high level of a medical professional that is performing these procedures on you as possible.
This reminds me of a case that is going on in another state, and it happened in January of this year. And it was a teenage girl who had gone to a hair salon, and the woman that she booked with was not licensed. And she said so on her disclaimer. It says, I'm not licensed. I'm trying to get enough hours toward my cosmetology license. And this mom booked her teenage daughter there anyway. Well, the person, the would-be cosmetologist, left the can of hairspray too close to a heating element by accident.
No.
And it exploded in this teenage girl's face.
Oh my gosh.
She's lost sight in one of her eyes. Her eye socket is shattered. She's got burns, and she's just 14 years old.
Horrific.
Yeah.
So even if you are doing your research and you're trying to give somebody a chance, what risk might you still be running with someone who's still learning the business themselves?
Right. Might want to really consider, how much you're paying for the services. Is that in line for the rate that these services are normally offered at other salons? If you're getting it at a discount, is there a reason why you're getting it at a discount?
I'm researching whatever it is and seeing, are the reviews good? Are the people certified, licensed, trained? Yeah, it makes it, you want to make sure that you're walking into. Advocate for yourself.
Yep.
And don't be gaslit, because I think about the woman at the salon who was like, well, is this okay? I feel like these foils have been on my hair a really long time. I'm like, no, it's fine. Yeah, you got to advocate for yourself. Do not give up. Thanks so much to Jennifer Fleming and Alyssa White from Montlick Injury Attorneys. This has been Lawyers in the House with Montlick and me, your host, Veronica Waters. See you next time.